Jets fans, and hello, Jets fans, and welcome to another episode of Rich Sports Talk, your home for all the latest and greatest on the New York Jets. Thanks, everyone, for joining us here today. I have a little bit of a homework assignment for everyone here. When you hit that like and subscribe button, don't forget to check out our community page. Again, this page is just about as much of you as it is about me. And today, I have a fun thing that coincides with this video. I gave you 3 choices of former NFL head coaches on the channel, and I want you to vote who you would like out of the 3 to be the Jets' next head coach. We have Ron Rivera, Rex Ryan, and we have Brian Flores, and we will give you those results at the end of those videos. So if you haven't checked out that poll yet, go check it out now. Again, guys, super chat, baby. Cut the line to get to the front and make sure that your comment is read. Also, check us out wherever podcasts are streaming. And again, we'll be here this entire offseason as the Jets go through the general manager search and go through the head coaching one. So let's start with the head coaching one. As the Jets have made some headlines this week, they have officially interviewed Ron Rivera. And according to Rex Ryan on his interview with Jake Asman's show the other day, and with Jake, he basically said that he expects to be interviewed by the Jets. And by all accounts, it seems like Rex will get an interview, which, again, shouldn't be too much of a surprise with Tannenbaum running the operation. So there is a lot to get into and this whole thing. So I want to start off with both candidates. So let's look at the biggest one, which is Rex Ryan. I think Rex Ryan, it's a bit of a polarizing topic with Jet fans. I think there are Jet fans that want to bring Rex back. They want to relive the glory days. They want to have Rex and that bravado back in the building. And I do think there's a lot of people in the Jets fandom that absolutely want nothing to do with Rex. So let me give you my thoughts on Rex Ryan. On the surface, I don't think it would be the worst hire the Jets can make. I've been adamant that I would like the Jets, and I do believe the Jets need to hire someone with head coaching experience. This is such a mess right now. This is an organization. They need someone that isn't learning on the job. They need someone that has head coaching experience. And Rex obviously not only has the head coaching experience, but has the head coaching experience in the New York market, which, again, is very good. And I do think Rex is going to say a lot of things that Woody in the front office is going to like to hear. He's going to talk up the Jets. He's going to talk about having the pride of being the Jets, having accountability. But the more I've thought about Rex, and while I don't think Rex would be the worst candidate, to me, this organization has to move forward. And I don't think Rex would be the best candidate. The one thing I've said about Rex being a potential head coach is, for me, if I'm in that building, to give him even a legitimate shot at being the future head coach of the New York Jets, he needs to have shown that he has evolved. And what I mean by that is he needs to have shown that he has a staff in place, a staff with innovative offensive thinkers, and more importantly, that he's adjusting the scheme. If he comes into the meeting and basically says, I want to run it back like 2010 and ground and pound and run the football all the time, it's not going to work. The NFL has evolved. It is a passing league. Even great offenses that run the football like Detroit, they have elements to the passing game. They have innovative play calling. It's not just pounding the ball up the middle for 4 or 5 yards a clip. The game has rapidly evolved. And I think Rex, especially on the offensive side, has need to evolve. If Rex comes into the meeting and says, look, I'll be honest with you, I understand that I need to get better on the offensive side. I'm going to take more of a CEO role. I already have a great defensive play caller in mind to call the defensive plays. I'm going to focus more on the offense, but this is the scheme I want to do. This is how it's going to be innovative. It's going to have all this different motion. It's going to be the peak. Like, that to me is what Rex Ryan has to do. If Rex Ryan just comes in and talks about the past, he's part of the problem. Because the Jets, if you remember, are a team that basically this whole playoff drought started under Rex Ryan's watch. 4 seasons without the playoffs after 2 AFC championship games. And the biggest thing that we have said is the C word the last couple of weeks with the New York Jets. It's been culture. It's been culture. And what have Jet fans wanted from this team? They wanted the new head coach to have the players be held accountable. And the unfortunate thing is, if you go with Rex Ryan, it's the opposite. When Robert Saleh was hired, the perception we got was this is the new Rex Ryan. This is a defensive coordinator that has a lot of high energy, a lot of pride, is someone that's going to be an energetic and a player's coach. It has not worked. The Jets don't necessarily need a player's coach. And the thing with Rex Ryan is we talk about the culture, we talk about the building. The thing is, this Jet team needs turnover. They need to basically get as many new faces in this building as possible. And bringing back Rex, even though Rex has had success with the Jets before and in this market, I just don't think helps long-term with this turnaround. And the biggest thing with Rex I look at too is there were problems in the locker room with Rex Ryan there, with Santonio Holmes. I mean, you had an atmosphere, a player's atmosphere, where if we forget that Geno Smith got punched out in the locker room by a defensive end. And it was in this culture that Rex Ryan, basically at the end of his tenure, it was the Wild West in the Jets locker room. As much as I respected Rex Ryan and what he did, a lot of the early success was he had team leaders like Jim Leonard, Bart Scott, players that held other players accountable. But what happened is when Alan Faneca and guys like that started to retire or get long in the tooth and move on in their careers, the problem is the Jets never replaced those guys. And it was all on Rex to kind of reel it in. And unfortunately, the Jets never did. The Jets became a ringling circus. And as great as Rex was as a head coach, you look at his record. He's 46-50 as the head coach of the Jets. And what's even more disheartening is the last 4 seasons. The Jets were 26-38 under Rex Ryan, and that included an 8-8 season, which kept Rex for another season. I get Rex Ryan is well loved, and I love Rex. I think Rex is highly entertaining. I love him on television. I think he's an unbelievable analyst. I will always appreciate what he's done for the Jets. And if the Jets want to bring him back within the organization in some capacity, maybe as an ambassador or someone in the football front office, I don't have a problem with that. I just don't think it's going to work as a head coach. And more importantly, Rex Ryan not only had 1 bite at the apple, but 2 to develop a quarterback with Geno Smith and Mark Sanchez. And both times it didn't work. And Rex Ryan, if we forget, did he possibly start this slide when, I don't know, they were playing Mark Sanchez in the Snoopy Bowl and he got hurt, which basically derailed his career? So as much as I love Rex Ryan, and as fun as it would be, to me, the Jets need to move on. Now, I will once again preface this. I don't think it's the worst hire. If you can get him with a great offensive coach, a good OC, he has a plan, he's shown he's innovative, I would rather take a shot on Rex Ryan than an Aaron Glenn. And I really like Aaron Glenn. I think he is a tantalizing prospect as a defensive coach coming out of Detroit, but I want someone that's been a head coach. I'm done playing the roulette, basically, of coordinator gamble. I'm sick and tired of the Jets, especially with Aaron Glenn. It's the next hot defensive coordinator. The Jets have gone defensive coordinator since Herm Edwards. Can we try something else? The last offensive coach the Jets hired was Adam Gase. Can we try something else? Like, if you're going to take a shot on a coordinator, do with an offensive guy, because you're going to have to eventually develop a quarterback. And Rex Ryan had not 1 chance, but 2 chances. And one of those quarterbacks, Geno Smith, has turned out to be a pretty good quarterback. And they've failed to do that. So let me get to the other one, which was Ron Rivera. And to be honest with you guys, I was a bit surprised by this for a couple of reasons. My first reaction was I was surprised that Ron Rivera was looking into coaching. Rivera's now in his 60s, last with Washington in 2023. But the one thing that also really surprised me was the pushback I got from Jet fans, which was the eye rolling. Like, I can't believe, like, why would we want to be interested in Ron Rivera? And the more I thought about it, I think Rivera is an interesting candidate for a couple of reasons. Before I get to him being a head coach, I think that there's a couple of things that why he was brought in for an interview. Number one, he's incredibly respected around the league. Number two, he's known for working in dysfunctional organizations and really being a good culture guy. And maybe Tannenbaum brought him in there, and the group brought him in there to get an idea of what a culture guy is saying, how they present themselves. Maybe they're using him as an example. And the more I thought about too is maybe they're looking at Ron Rivera as a piece to this turnaround. Maybe not as the head coach, but maybe as a defensive coordinator. We forget that he was a defensive coordinator, has been a defensive coach. Let me throw out a scenario for you. Liam Cohen is a name that's getting a lot of buzz. He's the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If the Jets were going to play that gambler roulette, which was let's bank on an offensive guy, because here's a couple things. Number one, I don't think Ben Johnson's coming here. I don't care how much money Woody Johnson offers him. I just do not see Ben Johnson coming here. I think he's looking at Chicago. I think he's maybe looking at Jacksonville. I think he has an idea of where he wants to go, and it's not the New York Jets. As much as I want to see him here, I don't think that's going to happen. But let's put this scenario out there. Let's say that the Jets are going through all these candidates, and they say, you know what? We really like Liam Cohen because we think Cohen can be someone that can really develop the next future franchise quarterback. However, we've also hung our coordinators kind of out to dry a little bit the last time because they don't have anyone in the room with head coaching experience. If you could get Liam Cohen and have Ron Rivera be the DC, I think that could be incredibly valuable, where you have someone that's not only a great defensive mind, but a great culture builder and someone that could help develop maybe an offensive coordinator into a head coach because you have someone on that staff with experience. So that to me could be one of the reasons that Rivera was brought in. Now, here was the other thing I thought was very interesting. And I know I'm going to get pushback because, again, I've checked the poll that I put on the community page. Again, guys, check out that community page if you want to check out our poll for former head coaches that the Jets could be interested in. Again, guys, if you want your comments seen, make sure to bash that super – sorry, guys, just a little train of thought, but getting back on track. You can use that super chat feature to jump the line. Make sure you can give us a donation for the page at any time. And, of course, use those new sticker features to help your comments stand out in the chat. Again, we'll get to your questions in a bit, but if you want to make sure yours is read, super chat, baby, to make sure that you get there. So the other thing I thought that was very interesting was the pushback on Rivera. Because when Pete Carroll was mentioned last week, I think there was a little bit of a tepid buzz with this team where when Ron Rivera was, it was like, oh my God, I can't believe they want Ron Rivera. And the more I thought about it, I was like, if I had to choose between Rex and Ron Rivera, I think I'd go Ron Rivera because we're forgetting about a guy that's coaching over 200 games, a guy that's won 102 and 103 as a head coach. But his best stint was in Carolina, 76 and 63, got them to a Super Bowl one year. And look, even though it didn't end well in Washington, it was also at the end of the Dan Snyder days where he was going crazy. If anything, it shows me he can put up with a crazy owner. Sound familiar? Look, I don't think Rivera would be my first choice. I'm not like scrambling like, oh, I think they got to hire Ron Rivera over Mike Vrabel. But if Vrabel's off the board and some of these other great candidates are off the board, I feel like the floor with Rivera is very high. I feel like you know what you're getting. You're getting a guy that's well-respected in this league. I like that he's been out of the league for a year, a chance to really kind of regroup and see the situation. But I just find it a little bit funny because so many people want Rex Ryan to be the head coach, want Rex Ryan to come back. Rex Ryan hasn't coached since 2015, 2016. Ron Rivera coached 2023. He's coached in more games than Rex Ryan, has more longer success with Rex Ryan, has coached in two different organizations, and basically he's taken a team to the Super Bowl, which Rex Ryan has never done. I don't understand the vitriol. And again, would I be jumping for joy if Ron Rivera is the next head coach of the New York Jets? No, he wouldn't be my first choice for a hire. But I almost get this feeling like they could do so much worse. And if they were to go with like the Liam Cohen method and they love him, they think, look, he's an innovative offensive mind. He is an offensive genius. We think he can develop a great quarterback and he wants to come here. If we pair him with Ron Rivera, a defensive coordinator who's had sustained success in the league, but also is a guy who has had head coaching experience, has culture building experience, is someone that he can be a springboard to him and ask for advice, to get opinions. Maybe even he's the assistant head coach. That could be an interesting pairing. That might be been part of the thing with Ron Rivera, where they were asking him, what would your thoughts be about being an assistant head coach? What would your thoughts be about being a defensive coordinator? Look, Rex to me is getting the job interview opportunity because he's publicly been pining for it. And he knows that Woody loves him and Woody will give him an opportunity. And it's good PR for the Jets, because if they didn't give Rex an interview, I think the Jet fans would be upset that they aren't looking under every single rock for the future head coach. So I don't think Ron Rivera is as bad as an option as people were saying, but I was just surprised the vitriol I saw from Jet fans instantly. And I get it. He's not the most exciting guy. But the problem with the Jets is I think Mike Vrabel is the apple of our eyes. He's the guy we want the most. But there's a major problem with Vrabel, and potentially two. The first one is the Raiders. Even though they're playing well under Antonio Pierce, Tom Brady is now a minority owner, and it seems like he has the ear of Davis. And if that's the case, I think Tom Brady, who has a relationship with Vrabel, is pushing for Vrabel to be the head coach. And I think Vrabel sees that if he gets to work with Brady, Brady's gonna let him have an opinion, have him say in personnel, have a say in the front office. I do think that is a key thing to keep an eye on. The other thing too is it's coming out that Vrabel is very interested in the Patriots job, and you could see why. That's where he spent the majority of his career. He has a good relationship with Robert Kraft. And while I do think he doesn't want to take over for another former Patriot player, I think he looks at the situation and goes, they have the quarterback in place. They could potentially have the number one pick in the draft. And if that's the case, it gives them a lot of leeway where maybe they take Travis Hunter, the best player in the draft. Maybe they trade it for a boatload of picks. Maybe they hold that pick for ransom and say, hey, New York Giants, you need a quarterback. What say you the next first 3-round picks? And they could be like, you know what? This is going to be a fast rebuild. I do think Vrabel, that's an option for him to look at that team. And as much as I want Vrabel to be here, and I do think Vrabel is interested in the Jets. He's even said if he has a say in the general manager, I do think the Jets are in play. But again, there's a lot of teams that are going to be vying for Vrabel. It's not just the Jets. It's pretty much every team that has an opening in the league, and there's going to be a lot. That's why one of the guys I would keep an eye on, if he gets fired, is Kevin Stefanski. If Kevin Stefanski gets fired from the Browns, he'd be one of my first choices. He's an offensive coach. He's had success in this league. He's worked in a dysfunctional organization before. That, to me, would be one of my top candidates. But again, I want you to let me know what you think of the poll. Let's get to some of your comments, and I'll give you some more thoughts on my thoughts at the head coach. But again, guys, make sure to bash that subscribe button, that like button, and also use the super chat feature to make sure you get in line. I think we need to hire the GM first and let them hire the HC. Look, this is also very early in the process, Melvin. I give the Jets credit. They've also interviewed a couple of GMs. Like, that's the other thing I've seen a lot of people like, well, why aren't they interviewing GMs? They have interviewed a couple GMs. I think that they're looking at the free agents right now. And again, you can't go out and get some of the other ones. And Melvin's giving us some good suggestions. Gruden, again, with the email situation, that's just something I don't want to touch. I do think, and even when he was with the Raiders the last time, I didn't think it was going great with the Raiders and how everything was unfolding there. And I love Gruden. I think Gruden is a great personality. I think Gruden is highly entertaining, and he's a great football mind. And once again, it's like these other head coaches. He's not my top choice, but I don't think he would be the worst choice. Matthias giving their thoughts. Vrabel, Flores, Carroll, Rex, no Rivera. So Matthias, I'm curious. Like, again, I agree with Vrabel. I agree with Flores. And I also would agree, Matthias, I would take Carroll over Rex. I just don't understand what's the vitriol against Ron Rivera. I mean, Ron Rivera's been to a Super Bowl. He's won over 100 games in this league, and he's well respected in this league. And I get it didn't end well in Washington, but if he got to stick around with Jaden Daniels, could things have been a little bit different? He didn't really get a chance to draft the quarterback correctly. He was working under Dan Schneider. It is just crazy right now. But again, I do agree, Melvin, that I would like to see a head of football operations. I get it. I want it too, but we'll have to see what they do with it. So again, guys, look, but they've already been looking. They haven't hired a GM, but they're interviewing people. This is like the first interview for job searches. Like, I don't see what the big issue is. And look, I'd rather have them interviewing people than waiting until the offseason. I'd rather have them get a head start on the situation. Again, Dano Jets, check out his channel. Have you hit the like button yet? Hurry. I would definitely do that. And again, guys, super chat to cut the line. I think there's a couple guys we could all rally behind after they are hired. Right now, most of the fans are putting together choices, staffs like they're using Amazon, not who actually fits together. And look, that's a very good situation. I do agree with that. Like, this isn't Madden. You can't just go and hire whatever coach you want. It's a vetting process. Vrabel just became available to talk to. And I think Brian Flores is an interesting one too, because Flores, you can't technically have an in-person interview until the Vikings are eliminated. I do think that you can do a Zoom. He's someone I would definitely keep an eye on as well, but it's still very early in the process. And I also agree with Dane. I'd like a 20-minute presser. I don't know when he would do that. I do think he owes it to the fans to talk. But the other thing too is I just the thing with Woody, again, I think it's easy right now with the way the Jets have played, with the history of the Jets, to like roast Woody. I get it, but I just find it a little ironic because everyone's like, he's the only owner that meddles. Every owner in this league meddles. Like, it's one of those things. And I get the articles coming out. I get everything about inside this building. And I'll get to one of the comments one of the Jets players made earlier today, and that people were aghast by it. And I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. I think we're in a situation right now where you're just seeing a lot of this vitriol. And I saw another article today talking about, well, Joe Douglas was mentioning back, in 2022 about all this, and, was talking about Brick texting his dad, stuff he sees on Twitter. And like that, he turned down an extension. Number one, I don't think the Jets would have ever offered him an extension because he hadn't had a winning season. But here's the thing with the Joe Douglas camp. And again, I think Joe Douglas has been a better GM than the previous GMs, which isn't saying much. But I do find it kind of funny that when you see Izzy gets fired, Maccagnan gets fired, all these other GMs come out. It's not like we're seeing like Maccagnan coming out of the woodwork saying, oh yeah, Brick was telling me to do this, or Woody Johnson was telling me to do that. Like, it's only been the one side from Joe Douglas's point of view, where, again, I think it'd be good if Woody could speak, so at least he can get his thoughts out there. But we'll have to see how that will go over. But another thing too was another bit coming out from Jets camp today was the DJ Reed comments that I guess in the locker room, he was talking to a beat reporter. Again, I'm not sure how credible it is, because I just find it funny where it's a Bills beat reporter that got this and not one of the Jets beat reporters, snooping around. But basically DJ Reed saying like, oh, he's ready to hit free agency. People are like, oh, I can't believe he doesn't want to come back. Oh, I can't believe, he's ready to leave. It's like, he's a late 20s NFL player with a chance of free agency. Every player, if they could get to free agency, wants to test it because they want to see how much money they can get, especially when you're in a season like this where your team only wins 4 games. You have no shot at the playoffs. You've been out of the playoffs for weeks. And people are like, oh my God, I can't believe DJ Reed doesn't want to be back. And like, he could be back if the Jets want to pay him, but they paid Michael Carter already. They weren't going to pay him once they paid Michael Carter. As good as DJ Reed has been for the Jets, and I appreciate everything he has done, I also look at it too as the Jets, one of the few positions they have depth on this team is the cornerback position. And I just look at this and I go, okay, well, he's going to be 28. They already hit on the first contract. What's the chances if they re-up the contract, it's going to be the same success being now 3 years older? And I just don't see that happening. Let's see. The Jets have always wanted. They're not getting. I think Rodgers is leaving. I don't think Cousins will be the quarterback. I think there are so many other ones too. But look, DJ Reed's a good character guy. He's been a very good pro in that locker room. It will be frustrating to lose him, but if the Jets give him the right contract and the Jets pay him more than anyone else, he could be back. The thing is, I think there's so many other holes on this team that need to be addressed. And as good as DJ Reed has been, he's not going to be the guy that puts this team over the hump. He's been a great character guy in the locker room, but man, we'll get to some more of your questions again. Super chat to make sure yours gets read. If Sal gets a DC job, it wouldn't surprise me if a guy like DJ Reed heads to that team. If they need a QB, a corner, I wouldn't either. I could see that. The thing too is I will really be curious to see how quick Salah gets a DC job. I think he'll be on a staff next year. I'm not sure if he will be a DC next year. And I agree with Melvin here. I do think Tyrod's a very good bridge quarterback. I think he can be, the big thing with him is his health. He's well loved in that locker room, well respected. It's clear Garrett Wilson has a rapport with him. Garrett Wilson respects him. And look, my biggest thing right now is make Garrett Wilson happy. Garrett Wilson is the type of player that you want to build around, not just because of his talent, but because of his attitude and the type of leadership he brings to the table. Like, he's the type of guy you want in your building and to help turn this team around. And if he says, look, I don't love Aaron Rodgers, I'm done with Rodgers. My big thing too with Rodgers is I think there's just so much around this. And again, it comes down to the new GM and head coach. Maybe there's 2 or 3 guys that would want Rodgers, but I do think Rich Eisen put it the best the other day. If a GM comes in and says the first thing or one of the first things I want to do is trade Garrett Wilson to get draft assets, that disqualifies them. You don't trade a guy like that. You don't. It doesn't matter the price. You try to make it work it out. You try to pay him. You see guys like Jermaine Johnson on Twitter today talking about how they're here for the long haul. Like, those are the guys you build around. Those are the guys you invest in. Those are the guys that you want to help build this team. And even like guys with Sauce Gardner calling out people. And again, I know he was out of the game yesterday and people were calling him out for that, like talking about people quitting. But again, I like that Sauce is holding people accountable. I know the hamstring's been an issue. My big thing too is with some of these guys, I'm like, just shut down Brees, just shut down Sauce at this point. They're clearly not healthy. Just let them get healthy. Melvin, I like this. Here's the thing why I'm waiting a little bit. I'm just waiting. And again, it's coming out from Jerry Fowler that Rivera is set to interview for the Jets head coaching job on Thursday. So I guess he didn't have it, but he's set to interview. But here's my big thing. I think that with this, it depends on where the Jets finish, because there's still a chance. And I went over all the scenarios in the last episode, which was after the post game. And I want to wait until after this game with the Dolphins, because then the picture will be fully set at that point. If the Jets are within the top 4 or 5, I still, if you could go up and get one, if you love one of these quarterbacks, go up and get a quarterback. But if a quarterback is out of the question, I think you take the most talented player. Now, I like Mason Graham a lot. I think there's a world where he's available. He's a great defensive lineman. I like Abdul Carter, but again, I think the Jets already have 2 pretty good edges, so I'm not sure if that really fits what they need. But I also wouldn't rule out, like, depending on where they pick, Will Campbell or Kelvin Banks. Again, I know they spent a high pick on tackle last year, but I would definitely look into that. And here's the thing. If the Patriots hold the number 1 pick, let's put it this way. It won't matter what the Jets offer. The Patriots will never trade with the Jets. They will never trade. Why would you give the team in your division that has been desperate to find the franchise quarterback the potential to find their franchise quarterback? You wouldn't do it. So if any team's going to trade up with the Patriots, I think it will be the Giants. And the Giants are also in a very tough spot. Because look, as bad as the playoff drought is, and we want to end next year, the one nice thing for whoever is coming in with the Jets is they have a clean slate. So and I've said this before, if you don't love the quarterbacks, and from a lot of the experts like Dane Brugler, all the people that cover this draft, even my scouting, you look at this draft class and it doesn't look great. Like there are people even saying that a better option, and I would look into this, especially if Sam, which again kills to watch him with the Vikings, if JJ McCarthy becomes available, he's someone I would look into, someone that has, again, years of control, and it comes down to evaluation. If you were to put JJ McCarthy in this draft class, would he be higher than Shedeur and Cam Ward? And I think a lot of people would say, yeah, he probably would be. So I would look at that option as well. And I also wouldn't hate the idea of a bridge with Justin Fields. Look, this to me is another very important aspect to this is don't get trapped with the quarterback. When you draft a quarterback, especially in the top 5, heck, even the first round, you are marrying that person. You're not dating to see how it goes. You're not hoping it will lead to a great marriage. You're marrying them. So you have to be sure. And the big thing is, like, if the Jets come out of this evaluation, or whoever is calling the shots and says, you know what, maybe there's a guy on day 2 or 3 I'll take a lottery pick on, have him sit. Maybe that might work out, but I'll tell you, this first round ain't looking too pretty. I would rather have that person be the grown-up in the room and say, look, this isn't a good quarterback class. Next year's is better. Let's just take our losses and move on. Then someone say, oh, we're just going to take a quarterback just to take one. And this is what would terrify me if I was a Giant fan right now, where you have Joe Shane and you have Brian Dable. If they don't end up with the top 2 pick and they stick around, there is a world where they're going to get desperate. Kind of like what Joe Douglas did with all the dead contracts and all the Hassan Reddick move this year, where the worst thing that can happen to teams is you get general managers get desperate. I mean, the Jets lost to 2000, like a 3rd round pick down the road because of Hassan Reddick. They basically mortgaged their future to get him. Like they made moves to go out and get all these mercenaries for this 1 year and defer all this dead money to make it work. And unfortunately, now it's coming back to haunt them. But I could see the Giants kind of being that situation where it's like, you know what, we have to draft a quarterback because we need to get the time. And the Patriots know that. Hard Knocks showed how desperate the Giants were to get a quarterback last year. So my big thing is you have to have someone that is going to be in there. After 1 year of here's the problem, Dano, I have no idea, because to me it's very concerning where this has been over a year and he hasn't even been cleared to come back to the practice window. Again, it was a gruesome leg injury. I think the Jets did the right thing. They took a flyer on him. I need to see him in training camp before I can make any assessments. Because again, I haven't seen him run. I haven't seen him move around. I haven't seen what the leg looks like. But I do think it is concerning where, especially in a lost season like this and a time where maybe he could get some reps and even in a game or even in practice, that he hasn't been cleared from the practice window. I mean, this injury happened more than a year ago. And from all accounts, all offseason, it seemed like he was on schedule or ahead of schedule. But for all accounts, it seems like he's a bit behind right now. So it is a bit frustrating, and I get it. And it's hard to say because, again, like talent-wise, I think he would probably be – I don't think he'd be Cam Ward or Shedeur, but I do think he'd be one of the top 5 quarterbacks in this draft. The hard part, though, is that's going off of Florida State the previous year, and he hasn't played, though. So, again, I get it, but this is also a very weak quarterback class, Dane. Let's not sugarcoat it as well. Again, guys, use that super chat feature to jump to the front of the line. Make sure that your comments are, and also use those new stickers as well. So one candidate, and again, I do think it is important to keep an eye on this one, is Brian Flores. Because the thing with Flores is there's a couple of things I like about Brian Flores. He's done an incredible job in Minnesota. He's been coaching up until this point. But there's one interesting factor that I really love about Brian Flores. And again, defensive guy, which concerns me a bit, like Vrabel. But there's a couple of things that I really like about Flores. Not only that his defense is playing amazing this year, but local guy. And again, I know that it hasn't the ties, but I do think he understands the history of the franchise. But you want someone that is motivated. And for me, a lot of people, when they talk about Rex coming back for this job, have pointed that out, saying, well, Rex really wants this job. Rex really wants this job. Like, he has the passion for it. And again, I can tell it is warranted. But Brian Flores also was in Miami, was 24-25 as a head coach, but more importantly, was 19-14 his last 2 years, got put with the quarterback that he didn't want. Remember, he wanted Justin Herbert, but the owner and the GM wanted Tua, but he still made it work, still won games, made the playoffs. Again, the whole lawsuit against like potentially tanking. I mean, he actually wanted the guys to play hard, and they played hard for him. I do think he's well respected in this league. But the more I thought about Flores, there's a reason why he is moving toward the top of my list. And when you want to hire someone, you have to think, why would they come to the Jets? With Rex, I think it's kind of easy. Rex wants to relive the glory days. It was the pinnacle of his career. He knows that if he could turn the Jets around, the feather in the cap, that would be. A lot of these guys, too, like I look at Vrabel, one of the hard things I see Vrabel not coming here is like, what is his motivation? What is the extra incentive for him to come here? I think that Brian Flores has something that no other coach in this cycle has. And that is he has a chip. And more importantly, I think it's appropriate for this weekend, he has a chip against the Miami Dolphins. We talk about how Bill Belichick despised the New York Jets, how he loved to rub their noses in it year after year. And part of the reason I think he was successful for so long was not just that he had Tom Brady, but he had this unbridled hatred of the New York Jets. With Brian Flores, do I think he hates the Patriots for maybe not giving him an opportunity? Could he be upset that he got passed over by Gerard Mayo? There might be something there. And that, again, would just be extra fuel on the fire and an extra, cherry on the ice cream. But Brian Flores, you cannot tell me, wouldn't want to come into the Jets job and embarrass the Dolphins and show the Dolphins what they were missing. Because we talk about the Jets drought, and I get it. The Jets drought of not making the playoffs is embarrassing. But the Dolphins, I could argue, have a worse one where they haven't won a playoff game in 25 years. And Brian Flores, I think, feels like he got the short end of the straw. Don't forget, he got fired after a winning season. Don't forget, he got fired after making it work with an injury-prone quarterback that he didn't really want. In hindsight, 2020, he wanted the right quarterback. He had the right choice. And to me, the more I look at it, and this is why I think Flores is floating more to the top, is Vrabel, I think, is just a good coach. I think he's going to pick the best opportunity. But when I look at this coaching pool, yes, every coach wants to be successful. But is there a little extra in the tank? Is there a little bit more of that pizzazz, a little bit more of, I want to stick it to that team? Because you cannot tell me for those two games every single year, not only would Brian Flores want to beat the Dolphins, but like Belichick, would probably want to embarrass them a little bit. So I do think that Flores, to me, is someone that also has a gripe against the league. He feels like it's him against the world because he's basically hasn't gotten another opportunity. And I just look at someone that's motivated, and I look at the defense he brings to the table, how ferocious they are, how much they are flying around, how passionate they are. That is something that I do think is very important. And look, he holds guys accountable. He's someone that, as this cycle's going on, the more and more I'm like, you know what? Flores, to me, like, give him an opportunity. And the other thing with Flores is I'm curious to see how many teams are going to give him an interview. We know everyone with a vacancy is going to give Vrabel an interview. You just know it. You know, Cohen from the Buccaneers is going to get a ton just because he's an OC. You know, Ben Johnson is going to handpick who he's going to talk to, but everyone in the league would want to talk to him. Where Rex, Rex is only interviewing for one job. It's the Jets. Ron Rivera maybe gets another phone call or two from another team. Maybe Pete Carroll gets a call. I doubt it, but we'll see. I think Aaron Glenn's going to get a lot of calls, but I'm curious to see how many teams are going to line up for Brian Flores. I'm very curious. And I will say this, if the Jets don't interview Brian Flores, I think that is a huge mistake. Because I do think that he is someone that I would like. And you can tell on the community page, again, guys, the poll is up. The results so far, and again, we'll keep updating. Right now, 62% of you want Brian Flores to be the head coach. Rex Ryan, 38%, and Ron Rivera, 0%. And look, I get there's not a lot of excitement around, around Rivera, but I keep thinking he's not the worst possible option. I think that there are worse options out there for this team. Again, I think he's got a higher floor than people expect. But again, guys, super chat feature available to use stickers in your comments. And of course, to make sure that your comment is heard, again, we got a lot of comments coming in. But if you want to guarantee that yours gets into the feed, make sure to use that super chat feature so that I can see your chats, basically. So again, guys, let's get back to it and we will see it. Micro Fox, John Gruden would also have a chip. Yeah, I think he'd have a chip, but he's also been kind of out of the league, and I didn't think it was really working with the Raiders, so I'm not sure how that would be. Indy Jets, well, we know, again, it seems like a Flores is getting a lot of love. Indy Jets, Flores would be my choice. Melvin, also a fan. QB issues aside, Flores got railroaded for refusing to stand down and lose. He's not my top choice, but I'm not going to discount him because an owner was unreasonable. The one thing you would worry with Woody is Woody worried about getting along with Flores or Flores not listening to him? That could be an interesting aspect to this. But look, Flores got absolutely railroaded without question. And the thing with it, too, is that's another extra reason why I'm kind of loving Flores more and more, because I think he's pissed at the league. But you don't think, especially for the Dolphins games, and I know it's only 2 opponents on your schedule, but that is something that is very important to me, where, you have to win your division games. You want someone that's going to have a defensive mind that's going to give Josh Allen trouble. And I know Rex Ryan made the comment about the Detroit team, but here's the thing, like, everyone's talking about the Vikings defense. The Vikings defense has been great. I think it's mostly because Flores is getting a lot with I don't think they have a ton of talent. I think they have a good defense, but he's scheming up to be a very good defense. I think the Jets have a lot of really nice pieces right here, but Enrico commented, like, not backing down to Woody. I think Flores is kind of becoming the unsung hero of the coaching service. So Momo giving his power rankings: Gruden, Vrabel, Flores. Happy New Year. I don't think Gruden. I'm curious to see if Gruden gets an interview. I know Gruden has kind of brought that out there. And look, I think Flores would be a nice story, him coming back with the polypeptide. But he would definitely be, of those 3, my top choice. Our locker room is such a short amount of time. Just the fact baffles me. Look, I think it's very simple. I think it's, especially on the offensive side, when you're Garrett Wilson, you're Breece Hall, you're these running backs, and you see, Devontae Adams getting all these targets and Alan Lazard getting all these targets. It's basically like AAU basketball. So, and the other thing with Aaron Rodgers is he throws guys under the bus. The red route with Mike Williams early in the season. Like it's never Aaron's fault. When Aaron throws a bad pick, well, there's 11 of us on the field. Well, Aaron, you also had Yeboah wide open this week for a fourth down. You could have run for a first down. Instead, you throw it at his feet. And you're the one yelling at him basically on your screw up. I think that's part of it. I think a lot of it is the accountability. And, he goes on McAfee every week and basically makes it like, well, it's not my fault. My stats are good. My completion percent's good. My TD to interception ratio is good. It's like, yeah, true. But when they needed you in the biggest times, you have come up incredibly short. You have come up incredibly small in really big situations. So that to me is incredibly disheartening. Yeah, but let's get to some of it as we get some more of the comments here. Again, guys, use the new super chat feature, which you can use for the stickers and also to guarantee that your comment is read. And again, Melvin also brought up a really good point too, where he asked me about the draft picks. Look, I'm going to talk the whole draft, the whole offseason. And I don't want to speculate too much right now just because I just want to see how the draft order ends. Because, again, there's a lot of variety. The Jets could be picking as low as 10, potentially as high as number 2. A lot of weird things have to happen, of course. But you know what, Melvin? And again, guys, while I'm doing this, use that super chat so I make sure that you don't get lost in the shuffle so I can get to your comment. Tell me about who you want to be the potential head coach, who you think would be a good fit of the candidates I mentioned, and your thoughts about Rex Ryan and Ron Rivera. So if we were to look at the upcoming schedule this weekend, the Browns are the first big game on the board. So the Browns are playing the Ravens. Ravens still playing for a little bit. It'll be curious if the Ravens do rest starters that could help. The reason the Browns are key is because their strength of schedule is higher than the Jets. So if they ended with the same record as the Jets, they would automatically catapult. The Jets would catapult Cleveland. An interesting thing I also want to ask Jet fans too, because it's kind of a weird Sophie's choice for a lot of Jet fans. And again, let me know in the chat what you think. So I'm going to give you a Sophie's choice here on Rich Sports Talk. Again, do you want the Jets to lose to help with the draft position, or do you want them to beat the Dolphins? And again, I know it's a meaningless game for the Jets, but man, would it be fun to just knock Mike McDaniel and those cocky Dolphins out of the playoffs? Like, I know it would be frustrating. And here's the thing. I think where the Jets are now, they're not getting a quarterback anyways. Even with the win, the Jets are still going to be picking in the top 10. I still think you're going to get a blue chip prospect at some point. But let me know what you think. Would you rather beat the Dolphins? Like, because it's weird. Like, I don't, it's one of those things, like, I wouldn't mind losing to the Dolphins for the draft pick. But man, it would be a nice finish to the season if the Jets could beat the Dolphins and knock them out of the playoffs. I mean, that to me would be very good. So again, guys, let me know what you have to say in the chat. So I am very curious to see. And again, I know a lot of people are going to be rooting for the tank. So, but speaking of the tank, let's get back to the tanking. Bengals and Steelers will be playing for the playoffs. So Panthers and Falcons. So you have Atlanta, I believe, playing for potential playoff spot. I'm just bringing up the playoff scenarios right now, like seeing who is still technically alive in the NFL playoff picture. Because again, I'm just checking. So I just want to make sure I'm not shooting myself in the foot here. So Atlanta still could get in. They're playing so they can win. So that's a good thing the Falcons are going to be playing hard. Panthers have been playing better. You wonder if they're going to try to knock them out of the playoffs. So if the Panthers win, that will get them to 5 wins. So if the Jets lose, they will automatically jump them. Also looking at the schedule, you have the Titans and Texans. Titans currently would hold the second pick. Texans are in the wild card position right now. Baltimore needs to win to clinch the division, so they'll be playing hard. I'm just trying to see where the Texans are. So Miami needs to win to get in, like we discussed. Just trying to make sure I get all the different scenarios here right now, but it is fascinating with this whole playoff thing. So I'll just look at like straight out. So if the Titans win, Titans would have 4 wins with their strength of schedule right now. The Titans have a higher strength of schedule than the Jets. The Jets would jump them. Patriots, Giants, and Eagles. That's going to be so many debates going into that game. I feel the Eagles are going to sit people. Are they going to just play Saquon until he gets the record? There's so much going on in that game. Jaguars at the Colts. The Colts are such a maddening, crazy team. Who knows what they're going to do? Jacksonville is a lower strength of schedule, so the Jets would need them to win in order to jump them in the standings. Giants and Eagles. I almost feel like the Eagles are going to lose that game just out of spite, so the Giants even screw their draft pick up even worse. The Patriots at the Bills. I think the Bills will rest people if that's the case. And look, I think Gerard Mayo is kind of in that Brian Dable situation where you have them playing out. I could see the Patriots winning and moving out of that spot. So let's see. Dana very adamant against winning. Does Saquon get the record? I don't know. A lot of it, it's such an interesting thing because I do think that the Eagles would love to rub salt in the wound on the Giants and just dance on their graves. But you do know if somehow Saquon gets hurt or nicked in that game, it would never be forgotten, and people would be crucifying Sirianni in Philly. Although, you know what I could also see is somehow Mekhi Becton gets nicked up in the last game, and all I've been hearing is how great he's been and how good he's been. I'm like, he's had a decent 1 year as a guard. Everyone's like, well, it's because Saquon. I'm like, well, Saquon also has a lot of other weapons, and they also have a great offensive line. I mean, Mekhi Becton is not the big reason. So, and I get a lot of people are against it. So, yeah, I get the idea of getting a president of operations. I think they should do that, but I don't think that they will do that. I really hope Aaron gets embarrassed, falls short of finding that Tell Roger ends his jet. That's what I'm rooting for. I also feel Micro. I would also, like I was saying this after the game last week. And again, if you're new to the channel, make sure to like and subscribe. We do recaps after every live game, which again, I basically call Jets therapy. And I was saying, like, if I had to do a prop bet, one prop bet would be, this would be my prop bets for the final game. Aaron gets 500. He throws it to Devontae. And then I have Tyrod Taylor scoring a touchdown. Because I feel like the second he gets 500, he's going to do what he did last week. Okay, I'm done. It's gonna be like Bernie Mac in Mr. 3000. He's going to be like, all right, we're good. I got it. My boy Devontae. All right, I'll see you later. I'm in the shower. Like, I could just see that. As soon as he gets it, he's like, all right, Tyrod, you're up. So it is, yeah, Dano, I agree too. Like, it's up to Saquon. That's what it was. I don't think he'd touch it. If it thrown to Garrett, Garrett would want to be a part of history, I think. And plus, I think Garrett would want to. But here's the thing. It's going to be Devontae. Like, I almost feel like he might not get just because I guarantee you, like, it will be funny. I feel like there's going to be at least one play where you're going to see, like, 2 corners and a safety on Devontae in the red zone, and Garrett and, like, Lazard are going to be wide open, and Aaron's like, screw it, I'm not throwing it to them. Like, you know what I'm imagining? Remember that infamous picture with Calvin Johnson with the Saints, and the Saints had literally 2 corners lined up against him before the ball was snapped? I literally could see that happening. Like, once they get in the red zone, the Dolphins are going to put both the corners or a corner and a safety right on Devontae and basically dare Aaron, you know what, Aaron? Throw it to anyone else. Throw it to anyone else. Throw it to Yeboah. Throw it to Conklin. Throw it to Garrett. You can throw it to Lazard, but we're not even going to bother covering Lazard because Lazard's going to probably drop it. Like, that's the thing, too. Like, I could just see I could also see, too, like, he tries to go to Devontae 2 or 3 times, realizes he's not going to get single coverage. On the third place, like, you know what? I like Alan Lazard enough. I'll let him have a shot of glory. I could just see Alan Lazard being wide open on the Jets logo in the corner of the end zone and just dropping 500 right on it. And I could just see the Aaron Rodgers eye roll, basically. Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I just could see that so much. Like, tell me I'm wrong. Like, you could not see that situation unfolding. Tell me I'm wrong that you couldn't see that all play out basically in front of us. But we'll have a lot to talk about, of course, after that game. We will break it down. I think that game will also be extra important because by the time we are done with that game, of course, moved to the 425 window, which, again, prolongs the season by an extra 3 hours for us. But anyways, it allows us to have a little bit more fun here on the Rich Sports Talk Show. So we'll be here after that game. So make sure to give us a like and subscribe. Again, we'll have a lot of people in that game, so make sure you get your super chats ready when we get in there. But we'll be live after that game. That game will also be very interesting, too, because we will be there and we will be breaking down the draft position. We will have an almost clear picture by that point where the Jets will be picking in April. Yeah. RJ Mita, I can't lie. That it would be fitting. It would be even more fitting if somehow Lazard tried to kick it to himself. I mean, he's done all the soccer practice and was playing with the actual football, so maybe he would try to kick it to himself to catch it. But I can see so many things. And here's the thing with the Jets this season: nothing will surprise us. Like if something wild happens, like of course. I could just see situations where, again, I could see it being like the last home game. The Jets have a lead. Jets look great in the first half, and the Dolphins come back. A perfect scenario would be if the Jets lose and the Broncos win, so then the Broncos get in and Dolphins are out anyways. I wouldn't necessarily mind a Dolphin being the Dolphins, but again, I seem to be in the minority there as well. Look, as much as I want to see that happening, Melvin, I just don't see it happening. I could see Garrett and Tyrod hooking up for a TD or two. Like, if you want a player-to-player parlay, like, that would be my parlay. If you want a Garrett Wilson touchdown, have it coming from Tyrod. Because I guarantee you, like, it's been obvious. It's not even been 1 week. It's been 2 weeks where it's been – Aaron, I am going to force feed this and make sure Devontae gets number 500. Like, that's what it is. And I also feel like the second that happens, that he's going to wipe his hands and be like, you know what? I'm good. I'm done. I'll see you later. That's it. It's over. We'll see you later. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. But again, guys, thank you so much for joining us here on Rich Sports Talk. Make sure to check out our new features on the channel. And if you haven't already, go check out the poll in our community page. Again, make sure you like and subscribe so you miss any of our content throughout the offseason. Again, we have a lot of activities like the polls where, again, you guys overwhelmingly 66% on who you would like out of the 3 former head coaches. You are adamant for Brian Flores. And again, I can see why. But again, guys, make sure to use the super chat feature in the next video so you make sure that you are not missed. Again, guys, I'll be doing my best to get other Jet content creators on this channel, and maybe I'll be popping up on a couple of other ones as well, guys. And again, guys, thank you so much for joining us here as always. We had a lot of fun. We'll be following this head coaching process, the GM process, and, of course, the NFL draft this entire offseason. So, again, as for a lot of Jet fans, we're actually heading into our season, which is unfortunately the off season, but we'll have a lot to talk about here on Rich Sports Talk. So make sure you like, make sure you subscribe so you are along for the ride. Until next time, I'm your host, Nolan Rich, and this is Rich Sports Talk. Thank you for joining us.